All the motors are now mounted, and let's go through a little checklist here to make sure that we're good to go for the next step. So we can see that all the motors, the wires are pointing towards the inside of the car. The encoders are also on the inside. Let's check to make sure the encoders are centered. Looks good. So this one here you can see is pretty close to this upper edge, so let's just pull this out a little bit. Wiggle that out a little bit. There we go. That's more centered. And the other two look like they're okay. The motors are tight. They're not wobbling one way or the other. Inspect each one of the wire connections here. Make sure that we didn't break any of the motor terminals off while we were constructing it, or that the solder joints didn't come loose. And I think we are set for the next step. So you can put the tires on now, but most likely with this you are going to want a motor driver board. So the typical motor driver that you would use with this is this L298M. This works very well. It's got an H-bridge FET inside the integrated circuit here. It's got two motor outputs, and power for the motors comes in here, and then the motors are controlled here. 4 pins. This motor left, this motor forward, this motor reverse, this motor forward, this motor reverse. And then it also comes with jumpered pins here. So if you just want to run the motors on and off, then you leave the jumpers in. But if you want to control the speed of the motors, like using an analog write in the Arduino code, then you pull this off and you hook the analog write pin up to this enable pin, and that allows you to control the speed of this motor. So that's how this thing works, and with any luck they will have holes that will allow us to mount this, and I don't really see a mounting hole in the bottom plate here for this, but you might have to drill your own. Now you have 4 motors, and this H-bridge only controls technically 2 motors, one here and one here. So what you can do with this chassis is you can wire these 2 motors together to this bridge. Remember, the motors are facing opposite direction, so it looks like you probably would take these 2 black wires and put them into one of these pins, and then take the 2 red wires and put them in the other pin. And so if you do it that way, then you can use one H-bridge to control one side and the other side. If you want to control these motors separately, for instance, you want this to be able to go in reverse and this in forward, which really wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, then you would have to have a separate motor controller. So then you'd have 2 of these, and that's how you would control the motors individually. But most of the time you just need one of these to control the car. And to save space on the top. So what's going to happen next is we're going to take these long posts and we're going to use them to mount the top. So for instance, a long post might go there. So that's why I like putting the H-bridge down below. Keeps all the wires down below for the motors, and gives you more room on the top for your controller board and sensors.